Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining, and welcome to another session of our Day One and Beyond series, where we take you through a variety of topics. Now, for today's session is Oracle's Cloud Security QuickStart. In this session, we will explore the various security features and services offered by OCI and to secure your Oracle Cloud workloads. This session is not intended to be a technical deep dive of any one subject, and is instead will show how security is built into each component of your cloud environment. And we'll focus also on the different tools you have at your disposal to improve your security posture.
Good morning or good afternoon, folks. It's an exciting topic today. Security is always very interesting to me. Joining along with me, Joey, today. Joey, you want to quickly introduce yourself?
Hey, everybody. My name is Joey Hall. I'm a cloud engineer on the customer enablement team here at Oracle with Anand. So looking forward to helping you all learn about cloud security today.
Thank you, Joey. So I'm a cloud architect at Oracle, and my role at Oracle is the enablement. I work in the enablement team. So today, what we are going to focus on is the two topics: security of the cloud, which I think most of you are familiar with, and security in the cloud. The security in the cloud, we're going to talk about a lot more on the capabilities OCI is going to provide you for you to take advantage of it to make your security posturing in, like an identity and access management, data protection, monitoring and detection, and workload specific. Joey is going to cover the number three, the monitoring and detection and prevention. I'll talk about the identity and access management and data protection. But in the first half, let's talk about the security of the cloud. What is Oracle doing it from the ecosystem, from the security principles, from the shared responsibility model, compliance perspective, like if you are organization working with a lot of compliance restrictions. And also, I think what are the things which we provide from a tooling perspective to make sure your security, guardrails are established from the capabilities perspective. Okay. So you can feel to ask any questions. My colleagues will be very happy to answer the questions in the chat. So whenever you have a question, please don't hesitate to ask it. But our goal at the end of the presentation, we want every one of you to walk away from this presentation to have a very high level understanding of security of the cloud. What are the things Oracle is doing, and then what are the capabilities Oracle is providing from a security in the cloud, identity and access management, as I talked about the data protection, etc. And you should all be able to implement some sort of security posturing if you come on OCI and take advantage of Oracle tooling, etc. Okay. With that, as I said, I will dive into the security of the cloud in the first portion of it, and I'll hand over to Joey in the second half of it, and then he's going to cover and showcase a quick demo as well. Now, Oracle security principles, Oracle has been a big proponent of a security at the fundamental things, we want to make sure our security principles is very simple, very prescriptive, and also integrated across the Oracle platform, as well as IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS applications, which we work on. So we make it very, very simple, so that you don't have to worry about it. It's always on posturing, so that if you don't have by default, you don't have an access to anything unless your default provided with something. Prescriptive, easy to enforce security posturing from a baseline management perspective, so that you can write simple policies to provide access. And when I say integrated, since we are building it at the platform side, anybody who inherits and build on the top of the platform automatically gets inherited our security posturing. And most of the, all of the Oracle applications, which is built on the platform, inherit the security posturing built on it. There are other principles which we want, it's automated, unified, and everything. But I want to highlight these three, simple, prescriptive, and integrated, is the key principles which we want to provide it to our customers to take advantage of it. Now, from a shared responsibility model, you might have seen this slide, very common slide, which OCI provides. You might have come from an on-prem background, and which you had a complete control over the stack on the left-hand side. And depending upon the type of service you're using at OCI, you have a various control and responsibility to manage with. As you move towards the far right, you have less reasons to worry about. You only manage the user access and the data. If you come to the left-hand side, in the IaaS side, you have much more control and granularity from taking from a guest OS, bringing your own guest OS, creating your own applications, data, user access, etc. So the reason we provide you this shared responsibility model is to make sure you understand your responsibility with the cloud vendor, in this case OCI, so that you can manage that security posturing very well. Now, the other thing which I want to talk about is the trust, right? When it comes to security, it's always the trust is the very core of the security, right? So you want to make sure when you deploy something on a cloud, you have to build up the trust about the vendor provided services for you, vendor provided capabilities for you. In that perspective, we provide a lot of external documentation for you to go and what are the practices we use at Oracle. What are the compliance perspective? We have a lot of white papers from the best practices we use it at inside Oracle. And then the other things we also provide you is the collaterals. If you are hosting the data in a particular region specific, like GDPR or constraints like GDPR, if you have a data in European region, as well as if you have other regions, we provide you a lot of collaterals for you to take advantage of. If you have pharma-based companies, you have a GXP requirements, you can take advantage of that as well. Now, the other two of them is the compliance reports. For example, what are the compliance offerings we do it, like in a SOX 1, 2, 3, ISOs, etc. You can take a look at it. What is Oracle doing it from the compliance perspective? How it is getting certified? All the compliance from is platform perspective, and making sure the customers who build the applications on the top of the platform can take advantage of it as well. In terms of auditing, I think we do a lot of the pen test every year. You can have the audit reports as well as the other reports which you require from an audit perspective for your own needs, for you to meet some compliance goals at your organization levels. We do provide all those audit reports as well. Now, I talked about the principles. I talked about the trust. Now, I want to introduce you the ecosystem from an Oracle perspective, right? I'm not going to go into any one of these individual services. Oracle has been investing heavily into the cloud. We're building a lot of capabilities for you to come and take advantage of it. Today, I'm going to cover the security security portion of it. But as you can see on the slide, right, we have the bells and whistles in the area which you're interested in, whether it is from the AI ML side of the fence, which is all this new Gen AI buzz happening. We are building a lot of capabilities on the AI side of the fence. And we have analytics and we have invested heavily into the analytics side. And of course, we have an industry leading database, which you can take advantage of it for if you want to bring in your applications and use it on OCI platform. Okay. But I'm going to focus mainly today on the security capabilities OCI is offering for you to take advantage of it. Okay. Now, one of the other things, security of the cloud, is what is the defense in depth we provide you from an OCI perspective. I'll go through the left to right. Most companies have some sort of identity store already established. If you want to continue to use that, we respect that. For example, Active Directory is most popularly used for an identity store. But if you want to come to OCI and create your own identity store, we do provide you identity store capabilities for you to take advantage of it. We do provide a unique offering called Compartment, which I'm going to talk about it in a minute. And then from a data perspective, we provide encryption at rest, encryption in transit, as well as a very good, fully managed vault service for you to take advantage of it to bring your own keys. Many customers want to bring their own keys so that they manage their keys. So we do provide a vault service so you can take advantage of it. From a compute networking monitoring perspective, we provide a lot more capabilities for you to take advantage of it. From a security posturing, for example, you're creating a network segmentation so that you can reduce the attack perimeter. From a security perspective, you take advantage of our software-defined networking, VCNs, and then so that you can create a lot of network segmentations. And from a compute side, we provide you a lot more capabilities for you to take advantage of it as well. Jovi is going to cover the monitoring and the prevention side of it, but just to touch upon it, you can take advantage of a lot of the monitoring capabilities OCI offers you for you to take advantage of it. If you don't have it, for example, log aggregation service, vulnerability service, and as well as generally if you want to have it, we have a tool called CloudGuard, which we're going to showcase in this demo as well, which makes you very proactive from identifying the risk, identifying the anomalies so that you can take a proactive actions rather than being very reactive. Okay. Now, from a design perspective, like, one of the things which I want to highlight is the half-box network virtualization, which is something which we thought about it very different from in Gen 2, Gen 1. So in Gen 1, I think the virtualization was built in, and then the network virtualization was built into your hypervisor. And so that in Gen 2, when we started off, like, Oracle started off, like, in Gen 2, like what we did is we decoupled the network virtualization outside your hypervisor so that a lot of this performance-centric workloads, right? Whether it's network workloads, like, is outside of your virtualization layer, gives you much more better performance. And also from a security perspective, it is isolated, so it's well contained, so that lateral movement is avoided for if somebody, like, there is a compromise in your virtualization layer, the lateral movement is automatically avoided, so that the network virtualization layer is outside of your virtualization layer. And of course, the encryption, this another security design which we provide you is the encryption between the VCNs within the region, as well as within the region, within the availability domains. We do use MACsec encryption within the availability domains, like you can see, and then between the regions also we use the MACsec encryption, so that everything encrypted when the data is traversed between the availability domains and between the regions as well. Now, from a regional sovereignty, like, we don't explicitly push the data unless you absolutely make sure you provide the authorization from a customer centric. Again, we use the encryption across the regions as well, so that make sure that if you're in North America and we are in Europe, you want to migrate the data, it is asked, we want to make sure you explicitly provide the approval as well. Now, those are the things which I wanted to talk about it, security of the cloud. Like, I talked about principles, building trust, like we talked about the encryption capabilities, which we have it, as well as the compliance perspective. Now, from the security in the cloud, like, what are the capabilities OCI is offering for you to take advantage of it? Like, from the defense in depth, one of the key things which we talked about it is the identity side of defense. So I'm going to cover the identity and access management and data protection, and then hand over to monitoring and detection for the second half of the series. Okay. From an identity and access management, it's a very, very important capability for any organization to store. An identity store is one of the core things where you maintain all the employees, the user IDs, as well as the partners or all the contractors, everything you have to maintain it. So we provide a lot more capabilities for you from an identity and access management, whether it is identity store, strong authentication, access management, governance, and you can see from left to right, we provide you end-to-end identity and access management capabilities for you to take advantage of it. Okay. Now, we do believe that a lot more of our customers are used, like, not only Oracle applications, but third-party applications. And in fact, like, some of the customers are still in on-prem, so they're migrating into cloud. So whether it is the cloud applications, third-party applications, on-prem applications, or even a distributed cloud, like, now the multi-cloud is becoming a norm. Like, a lot of customers are using multi-cloud strategy that we do. You can take advantage of Oracle Identity and Access Management, maintain your identity store at OCI, and still make sure you have a federated access to across the different applications. Now, I just touched upon this compartment structure in the beginning, right? The compartment is a very unique offering when you compare to OCI. I've never seen any other cloud vendor offering this structure except the Google Cloud folders, which comes very close to the compartment structure. Compartment is a logical, like, it's not a physical thing, it's a logical separations. Think about this as a Windows folder structure where you can create 6 levels Windows folder structure. And you can ask me why I'm talking about this in a security session. The reason compartment structure is a very, very key from the security posturing, as well as all resources has to be deployed inside the compartment, and you can write policies on the compartment, who has an access to what. And as you can see on the screen here, like, there are many compartments here, like, from the structure perspective, you can, as I said, you can go up to the 6 levels nested deep structure, but I'm just showing you the top level here. And then different admins on the right-hand side have an access to different compartments. For example, if you want to have a database team and they want to only control the databases in the database compartment and they don't have an access to the other compartments, like, they can have read-only access, but not the manage or admin privileges in the other compartment. So again, least privileged access, tightly controlled, make sure that who has an access to what. And also the compartment plays a very, very important role for you to separation of resources. For example, if you want to make sure dev, test, prod, you can have much more leniency on the dev side of the compartment. So give them more freedom to innovate, freedom to play around with it, and make very tightly controlled access to the production compartments. Okay, so it's a very organizational tool, and you can move around the compartments. I don't resources can be also moved, and compartments also can be moved between the hierarchies. Just make sure that I think you can also use compartments to track the cost as well. What are the resources which you've deployed inside the compartment, how much it is costing you from a cost perspective, so that you can track that as well. So a lot more advantages. It's a very unique offering from a cloud OCI perspective compared to other cloud vendors. I highly encourage you to take advantage of it in terms of security perspective, cost perspective, resource isolation perspective, a lot more benefits from a compartments capability. Now, I talked about in earlier security principles, we made it very simple. The reason we made it very simple is we want to make sure by default, no one has an access to anything, and you have to write policies to give the end users the access. And I want to quickly take a look at it. How can you provide very easily an access to someone to a resource or a list of resource, ability to list the resource or ability to manage the resources in OCI is the syntax is allow the group name, and here comes the verb and the object family, as I told, in the compartment, and where condition, you can do the where conditions. So allow group A to manage compute in compartment A, and you can have a where conditions as well. So there are 4 verbs which we use it in OCI. The inspect is the least privileged one, ability to list resources, and then read, and then the manage, use and manage. Manage provides you all the privileges for you to take advantage of it. It's like an admin privileges. On the right-hand side, you can all see the families. You don't have to provide the entire tenancy access. You can provide the family which they are working on. We all wear the different hats, if I'm a network admin, or I'm a database admin, or I'm whichever the role I'm playing in, you can contain the privileges to that particular family you are working on. Okay, I'll take a 10 seconds pause. Questions on that, if you can type it into the questions before I jump into the next slide. Is any questions on the policies in the identity and access management capabilities, which we talked about it before we jump, or a compartment in general? Please make sure you type that questions into the Q&A, and my colleagues can answer to you. Now, the other example which I wanted to showcase to you is, if you look at it, there are 2 compartments here, compartment A and compartment B. The user, and there is many groups here, group A and group B, and you can add the user A and user B. And so users can be added. We only write policies on best practices is write policies on groups. In this example, allow group A to manage compartment in compartment A, and allow group B to inspect compute in compartment B. So there is a group A which can have the privilege to manage the compartment in the compute in compartment A, and the group B only has the inspect privileges in the compartment B. And one of the best practices we always encourage our users to do is attach the policies at the root level, so that you can manage all the policies at the root level. So you can see what are the policies you have provided for the entire tenancy. So it's much easier to manage it at the root level. So that's one of the recommendations from an Oracle perspective. Now, from a data protection perspective, I'll quickly run through it. We do provide a lot more capabilities for you to take advantage of it from a data protection. As I talked about it, encryption in rest and encryption in transit. So what we do is encryption is we use AES 256 for all the encryption at rest, by default, block volumes, object storage, etc. And in transit, we use TLS 1.2 and above, so that you can take advantage of it. If you're If the data is in transit, it is using TLS 1.2, very secure by design, very secure, so that you can take advantage of that as well. Now, I touched upon key management a little bit in the earlier thing. We do provide you the services for you to manage your own keys, so you can bring your own keys so that you can use it in the OCI. It's a fully managed and highly available service for you to take advantage of it. It meets a lot of regulatory compliance, like PCI, PIPS 140-2. And one cool thing about our Vault services, it has got a native integration with all the platform services which on the OCI. So you can take advantage of that. So it comes, if you're using OCI services, I'll highly encourage you to use key management service. Now, last but the thing before I jump into demo is data safe. I think we all know this. Most customers have this practice of like moving the data from an higher level environment to lower level environment for testing purposes. We keep hearing this day in, day out, like, the data from a production is moved into the dev, and that's a big no from a compliance perspective. And data safe provides you a lot more benefits from you to identifying the sensitive data, identifying any anomaly activities on your database, as well as providing you the masking capabilities of a sensitive information, so that when you do move from higher level environment to lower level environment, you can mask the data so that the sensitive data is not exposed at the lower level environments. Okay. And by the way, the data safe is available only for Oracle database, and whether it is hosted in on-prem, hosted in cloud, or hosted in other cloud vendors, only for Oracle database. Oracle console, you probably see this every day. This is the landing zone. And I touched upon the left-hand side is the hamburger, which you can see all the core services from OCI, compute, storage, networking, Oracle database. Today, I'm going to talk about identity and security. And if I double click on identity and security, I touched upon, there is a lot of security capabilities for you to take advantage, from key management perspective to certificates to access governance to identity side of the fence, where identity and access management, etc. Now, I touched upon compartment. I'll quickly show compartment and policies and hand over to my colleague. So from a compartment perspective, I talked about it like, higher level compartments. It's just like a folder structure, as you can see. So since it's an internal tenancy, I've created some of the compartments under the Vision Corp. You can see Vision Corp dictates or depicts a fictitious company, which we want to use it for our discussion for this session. It depicts a simple company where it has got, it is being, the compartments are created based on the verticals they have: finance, information services, marketing, etc. Under information services, which is an IT organization, I can see that there's a lot more compartments created for infrastructure, information security, enterprise data, etc. As I talked about it, you can go 6 levels down. Like, I can create dev, test, prod here, or create some project folders, okay? The beauty about compartment is you can resource isolation and also security perspective. You can provide who has an access to that. I'll show you quickly on that policies, and you'll understand what I meant on it. So I am assuming my top level compartment is Vision Corp, and here are the policies which I've created. One of the policies is to manage the database. Okay. If you look at it, there's a group called database admins, and I provide them the managed privileges to manage the database family in the compartment Vision Corp. And another policy which I've created is for network admins. I only create network admins, and I provide them for only to manage privilege for network family in the compartment Vision Corp. Okay. So least privileged access, you can make sure you can create groups, write policies on groups to provide the family they are working on, and make sure you provide the right privileges. So again, least privilege principles from a security perspective, and make sure they are contained to the compartment which they are working on. Okay. Last but the least, from the user perspective, you can see here, I clicked on the domains, and this is the identity cloud service default domains. There are a lot of users. You can do the federated users. So if you are using other identity stores, you can bring in the users through federations and manage the groups and create the groups and write policies on the groups as well. So here are some of the groups we have created, and just for an example, and here are some of the users which we have, also some of the federated users, as well as the users which are based in identity and access management.
So we went over setting up your identity and access management permissions. We talked a little bit about ways in which you can protect your data and ways in which your data is inherently protected within OCI. Now we're going to dive into a couple of services that fall under the category of monitoring, detection, and prevention. So how do I monitor what's happening within my tenancy, detect any potential issues, or prevent things from happening in the first place to your resources? And one of those tenets that Anand went over at the beginning was transparency, right? So we want to be able to see everything within our tenancy and then make it easy to respond to issues as they come up. And one of the main services that you're going to use to do that within OCI is called CloudGuard. So CloudGuard is your overall tenancy posture management tool, security posture management tool, where you will determine which compartments you would like to monitor using CloudGuard. You could choose to do it on all of them. And then CloudGuard would look for a defined list of potential vulnerabilities and then provide you with recommendations on how you can go about resolving those. So if you look at this high-level diagram here, you're going to see this as I walk through each of these services one by one. You could think of this green dotted line as a compartment, like Anand went over, and then each of these are different types of resources within that compartment. So CloudGuard will monitor your different compartments and detect problems within those resources. Will help you apply responses to those problems found in those resources, and then give you an overall security score based off of that as well. It also has some built-in threat intelligence using CrowdStrike, so you can leverage that within the tool as well to further identify potential threats to your applications and workloads. And since this is what the demo is going to be on, that I'm going to go into for about, let's say, 10-ish minutes, I want to go over a couple of key terms and definitions. So we want to know, what is CloudGuard monitoring? How is CloudGuard monitoring it? What gets detected? And then how can I respond to those potential problems? So the what is targets. And as mentioned, targets are compartments. So you'll go in, you'll define which compartments you want to be targets, and then all of those resources within those compartments will get monitored, as well as the compartments underneath. So if we use this little tree here, if I set the target as this top green one, I could also monitor all resources within the compartment sitting below it in the hierarchy. The how is the detectors. So there's different detector recipes, which have a defined set of things that CloudGuard is looking for. You'll be able to customize this a little bit. So you'll be able to say, how important is this rule? How would I like to respond to this rule? Do I care about this rule or not? And then you get to choose where you apply these detector recipes to which targets to give you a little more granularity. And then based off those detector recipes, you'll see problems that arise, and those problems will have varying severity levels and different recommendations. And then responders are how you can respond to those issues. So you can have some automated responses, or you could go in and do the responses manually based off of those recommendations. This is an example workflow. Can walk through that real quick. So let's say you have a bucket in object storage, and I have CloudGuard monitoring the compartment where that bucket is. Let's say a user goes and makes that bucket visibility public. Well, I have a rule within one of my CloudGuard detector recipes that says, if anyone makes a bucket public, please generate a problem with the associated severity level. So in this case, it would be critical. That problem gets populated within the console, or if you're accessing it via CLI or API, you'll see that problem as well. And then you have two different ways in which you could tackle this. So the top's the automated route, the bottom would be the more manual route. So you can integrate with the event service, notifications, functions, and have that trigger some type of action to automatically happen based off of this problem occurring. Or I could have someone that's designated as a CloudGuard operator who's responsible for viewing and managing and responding to those issues, and they could choose what to do. So in this case, if they wanted to remediate that problem, they could do so, make that bucket private, and move on. So CloudGuard's your more, I could say, you see potential problems, and you choose how you want to respond to those problems. But what if I want to prevent things from happening in the first place? This is where our security zones come into play. So here, what I would do, looking at this diagram again, we have this dotted line that's going to be like a compartment, and we have the resources in that compartment. We can designate this compartment as a security zone, meaning this compartment is now subject to a list of rules within my security zone that prevent certain things from happening. So if, for example, we used the last use case, so let's say a public bucket and object storage, if someone tried to create a public bucket, edit a private bucket and make it public, or move a public bucket into this compartment, if my maximum security zone forbids that, none of those actions can take place, and I instead would receive an error message, and that's regardless of any permissions that you may have. So that's how you can tightly lock down your compartment to prevent things from happening in your more sensitive workloads or higher security environments. And what you'll be doing is, by default, you'll have a maximum security zone. And what that is a security zone with the maximum number of rules. That's kind of the tightest you can lock down a compartment. And what you can do is clone that maximum security zone and edit it however you need to make it a little more lenient if needed. All right, so now we'll step into some more service-specific areas. So CloudGuard and maximum security zones, you see those are kind of operating at the compartment level across different services. We're going to dive into a couple of them here at the top now. So we're going to start quickly with the network firewall. And this gives you different protection capabilities. You get to do custom filtering. You'll have intrusion prevention and detection, TLS inspection, really adding to the kind of layered defense approach that Anand was talking about in the beginning. So this is going to provide protection at the network level and give you integrations with different services like logging and metrics to give you visibility into what's happening with your network. And then you can use the threat protection to monitor it, but also block potential things like malware, spyware, and different vulnerability exploits as well. Now, on top of the network firewall, you have protection at another layer as well, which is the web application firewall. And the main goal of the web application firewall is really to prevent or protect your applications from any unwanted or malicious internet traffic. So if you want to protect against some vulnerabilities like cross-site scripting, SQL injections, DDoS attacks, right? All that can be done by configuring your web application firewall policies. And you'll kind of have two options for this. You'll have your web application firewall policy, which is regional, or you could have your edge policy, which is global. So if you're using the WAF policy, which we're showing here, attached to the enforcement point, in this case, it would be a plugin for your load balancer. You could do that. Or you could use the edge policy as a global solution, and that would work, and use your DNS to point to that. You can convert back and forth. You'll just have to do that manually as well. It's going to have a couple different ways in which you configure it. So you kind of walk through which areas of the WAF policy you would like to include. So you'll choose, if I want bot protection, and then you can choose how to configure bot protection. Do I want rate limiting? Then you would select yes, and then you can configure your responses and thresholds based off of different rates and stuff. So this allows that application layer protection there. And it does work. They both work well together. Again, we want that layered defense approach. So you'll have both of these for those different use cases to make sure you're secure at different levels. So make sure to utilize the network firewall and the web application firewall if that's something that your environment would need. Now, moving to our compute services, we have the vulnerability and scanning service. So similarly, how CloudGuard helped you helped find potential vulnerabilities across different resources within your tenancy at a high level. The vulnerability and scanning service is going to do something similar, but more granular and specific to your compute instances and container images. So then here you will define your target resources, these just being instances and or container images, and you'll choose types of scans that you would like to run and when you would like to run them. So you'll have host scans and port scans and container image scans are your options. And each is going to be looking for different types of vulnerabilities. So the host scan can help find any vulnerabilities, including like operating system packages that might require updates and patches, or different operating system configurations that people might exploit as well. Port scan will help find any of the ports that were unintentionally left open. That might be another area of attack. And then the container image scan is specific to just container images. And each of those will generate their own reports and allow you to view the details from there. You could see this as tying into CloudGuard. So CloudGuard can help kind of direct you to the more specific services as well. So CloudGuard could say, host has potential vulnerabilities. So then you get notified within CloudGuard, you could navigate to the scanning service, or it can hyperlink you there. And then you could view details of the report and take further action at that point. So it does help move you to the more specific services, going with that unified approach. So next, we'll move over to the certificates service. So this service really is just providing you with all the different management capabilities you would need to work with certificates within OCI, whether that's if you're creating your own certificate authority and issuing certificates that way, or if you're importing certificates from a third-party certificate authority as well, you can still manage those here. So this, you can store your certificates here, you can do revocation, you can do automatic renewal, and it also ties into CloudGuard, similarly like we talked about with the scanning service. So CloudGuard could notify you of a potential certificate expiration, and then you could go in, view that certificate, set up automatic renewal for that if you'd like, and then take action as needed from there. Just like the Vault service that Anand went over, also supports FIPS 140-2 level 3 HSM storage and cross-regional replication and asymmetric keys. Now, the last service we'll go over today, and then we'll get into the console for the demonstration, is going to be the Bastion service. So what this really is just your jump host as a service. So if I want to utilize a jump host server to allow access to my resources that have no public IP address, you're accessing within your private networks, instead of having to provision and deprovision and manage that jump host server yourself, you could utilize the Bastion service to do that for you. So you would give a time-bound access to these certain resources, and whoever has access, the appropriate identity and access management policies, could access these private resources via the Bastion service for that limited period of time. So then that jump host server gets provisioned for that time and then deprovisioned after the access is no longer needed. So it's on-demand jump host servers. Makes it pretty easy to manage and is one benefit of utilizing this within a cloud environment. And then once anybody is connected to any of these target resources, so any of these targets could be a lot of different things in this case, but once they're connected, and once they have access, they can connect via SSH and then can interact with any software or protocol that's supported by SSH. Okay. Now, before I hop into the console, just do a couple things to remember here. So 4 high-level things. So 1, in a shared multi-tenant compute environment, Oracle is responsible for security of the underlying cloud infrastructure. So the security of the cloud portion that Anand went over at the beginning. So off-box virtualization, data encryption at rest, stuff like that. And you are responsible for securing your workloads and configuring the security of your services. So one of the main purposes of this presentation, right, is letting you know what is available to you to help protect your environment at different levels. A lot of these, if not most, are free. So you will just be responsible for enabling that service and configuring it to your environment, which your account teams can help you with as well. A least privileged approach is used to grant access to production systems. So remember, that's deny by default. So there are no allow permissions. I mean, there are only allow permissions. There's no deny statements that you'll have because it is deny by default. So only give permissions to people who need it using those policies that Anand went over. 3, take a hierarchical view of security configuration. So start by addressing foundational security issues and then address the security of specific infrastructure resources after. So start for the big glaring things that you need to get started, and then you can move to the more specific use cases after you have your kind of foundations covered. And then 4, use CloudGuard to examine your Oracle Cloud infrastructure resources for security weaknesses related to configuration, and examine your operators and users for risky activities, which we will go over right now within the console. So the console may look a little different to you right now, just as the new UI that's coming into play. It's pretty similar to what the old one was, but a little easier to navigate. What we're going to do now is just hop into CloudGuard. So hamburger menu in the top left. We're going to go down to identity and security, and then you'll see CloudGuard underneath this here. So we'll go into CloudGuard. And if you currently do not have CloudGuard enabled, instead of seeing all these metrics, you'll just see a little button that says Enable CloudGuard. So in that case, you just click Enable and approve the policies that it shows you, which is basically allowing CloudGuard to read all of the different resources. So just read access to pretty much everything in your tenancy that it needs to look at. So you just approve that, and then you can start configuring things within here. The overview page is going to give you a rundown of your security score and your risk score, as well as looking at your recommendations. And then give you a breakdown of your different problems as well by a couple different areas. So you could view it by severity, you could view it by compartment, detector type, region, or resource type. This can help you figure out where most of your problems are located. So is it a certain environment that's giving me issues? Is it mainly user activity or configurations? Is it my main region or my DR region? Things like that. Then you get a map of user activity. So I could go in here and see problems associated with users or potential problems. Again, it looks for potential vulnerabilities as well. And then once I see this pin, I can click on it and view the events associated with that location. Responders, these are actions that are ready for CloudGuard to just take and implement right away. So any of these, I could go in and have CloudGuard take the action for me to remediate the issue. And then this lets me know how things are doing over time. So how's my security score doing, going up or down? Are new problems arising? And then are people remediating anything, which we are not doing in our tenancy currently for our demos. But your security score could go up or down for a variety of reasons. It could be because new problems are identified. That could cause it to go up. It could be because you've remediated things that can make them go down. It could also be because of how you tuned or created your recipe. So if I move a certain issue from critical to low, that could drop my security, increase my security score, or the opposite, right? That could decrease my security score. So keep in mind, use both of these to see what's happening over time. Now, if I was going to set up CloudGuard real quick, what I would do is I would figure out what compartments I would like to monitor and choose how I would like to monitor them. So the fastest way I could go into configuration. I would go to targets. I would create a target. So method one, I could choose to just monitor my whole tenancy here. So I could say target name tenancy, give it a description. I could leave it as the root compartment, meaning the highest level compartment in my tenancy. So the root will be there by default, and that's for the top of the hierarchy. So if I select this, inherit it downwards, then I'll cover pretty much everything. I hit next. Now I get to choose the how. So in this case, I would select the Oracle managed recipes, because if you're just getting started, you will not have created any of your own recipes yet. And then I could hit next, and then I could create this. So what this would be doing would be monitoring my entire tenancy at the root level, utilizing all of the Oracle managed recipes. From there, I could go see what pops up, and then I could tune afterwards with my own recipes. This would just give me a baseline of what's happening. So that way is going to require a little more tuning after the fact. The other way you could do this is identify your different target environments. Say, how do I want to monitor these differently? And then I could create recipes for each of those environments so that you don't have to tune as much afterwards. If that was the case, what I could do is I could go back to recipes, and then you'll see all of those Oracle managed detector recipes. I could clone one of these. So I could go to a configuration detector. I could clone it. So I could say this is prod config recipe. And do that. And then I could edit that clone. You can see these are some of those rules within the recipe I was talking about. So these all have to do with resource configurations. Then I could edit a clone and actually change some of those recipes that you saw. You can't change anything with the Oracle managed ones, but you can with the cloned ones. So I'll go to the cloned activity detector recipe. Now you can see I have some more options up here. And then I also can edit each of these rules individually. So let's say I want to go into VCN created, or let's go VCN deleted. I can edit this. So let's say I don't care about this rule because this is a low-level dev environment where I need to be creating and deleting networks to test things out. I could choose to disable this because I don't want that to impact my security score, and I could apply this to the dev compartment. Or let's say I want to keep it, but I don't think it's medium. I think it's critical because this is for prod. Right? So this is for prod, put this as critical, and then that will affect your score accordingly. Conditional groups, those will allow things to be more granular. So let's say I only want this rule to apply to resources in a certain region, right? Or any of the variety of parameters that you see here. I could select that parameter. I could choose inclusive or exclusive. And then I could write out the regions that I want here. So I could say, I only want this rule to be critical in Ashburn and Phoenix. So I could write Ashburn and Phoenix here. Or if there's a list of things that I use frequently, I could just go to the managed list, select that if it's been created already. So now it's only region in this managed list here. So that's how you add granularity to each of these rules. And that could be as broad as a region, or it could be as specific as a list of resource IDs as well. So based off how you configured those, where you applied them, that will affect your score and give you all of these charts and graphs you can use to help direct you to resolving your problems. So lastly, I want to show you the problems that can be found under alerts. I'll go into problems. You can view any of these. So I could select this one, for example. VCN security list allows traffic from all sources. Actually, give a different one. You could filter these too. So if you want to do it by problem name, risk level, detector type, any of that, I'll do by risk level and only look at the critical ones. Let's do instances publicly accessible. Let's look at that one. So this one gives you a summary of the problem. You can remediate it from here. You could navigate to it, take some action, and then mark it resolved manually, or you could dismiss it if you don't think it's an issue. You get all the details about the resource and the problem that you need, and then each problem has this recommendation to let you know what we think you should do about this potential issue. So come in, read the recommendation, look at the resource, and then determine what to do. If I want to remediate it from here, not every problem has that, but some do. I could pick the action I want to take. I could add the policy statement to allow CloudGuard to do this and hit remediate. And then whether I remediate it, mark it resolved, or dismiss it, all of that gets logged in the problem history. So that's the general workflow. But we do have other areas to help you learn more. So you could do certifications through Oracle University. There's some guided learnings. We have a lot of hands-on labs, really good labs that you can go through. We actually do labs through our Day One and Beyond series as well, so you can sign up for those. There's also documentation, some best practices with cloud adoption framework, and a bunch of good videos on YouTube. Each of these Day One and Beyond sessions can also be found in our YouTube playlist as well. And these are all the Day One and Beyond series that we have going on. So there's the core series, there's the hands-on series, those are the labs I was talking about. There's cloud native, security, related to kind of what we're doing today, and did you know for new features and things, which is led by Anand. Appreciate everybody's time today.
Our next session is the Oracle Cloud Database QuickStart on December 17th at 10 a.m. Pacific. So we will cover an overview of the different database services and tools available in Oracle Cloud and their key features. So we hope to see you all then.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate you joining.